Today I'm going to show you a third grade lesson on how to make a clay sun. We are starting off by using a chunk of red clay. And so to get started, we're going to take that piece of clay and we're going to squish it in our hands. And then I'm going to show my kids how to use their magic hands. And so they're going to really slowly take their hand and wave it over the ball at the same time that they're pushing down. And that will help create a sphere. So they're going to be using their muscles to push down, spin it around, and make it into a sphere. And as soon as they have a sphere, they want to set that sphere down because your hands will dry out the clay and the dry clay will crack. So as soon as you have your sphere, set it down on your tray. Now that we've got a clay sphere, we're going to turn it into a patty. So I'm going to put that sphere into my hand, and I'm going to slap it 3 times really hard. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to keep on doing that until I have a nice sized patty just when the clay starts to get floppy. Okay, I don't want it to be so thin that it's flopping everywhere, but this looks about good. I could maybe just give it a little bit more of a press here. And now it starts to kind of flop, so that's a nice thickness. And so I'm going to immediately set that down and leave it alone. The next thing I'm going to have my students do is have them write their name really clearly on this clay patty. So I'm just going to write example on mine since it is the example. Making sure that all of my letters are clear and that maybe my neighbor can read them so that I'm sure that when it comes out of the kiln that I get mine back. I'm also going to have them write a 3 for third grade and their first letter of their teacher's name, which is a J. So they're putting a 3J on the back. That way we know that this belongs in third grade Johnson, and then you can clearly read their name. All right, our next step is going to be to add the sun rays to our clay suns. So I'm going to flip this over so my name's on the back. My students are going to be using a fork as a scratching tool now just to make things go a little bit quicker. So they're going to be taking a fork and gently, just along the edges, not into the middle of their clay sun, just along the edges doing tiny, tiny scratches, scratching like a cat scratch. They're not clawing all the way through or tearing through the clay, just doing a nice, tiny cat scratch all the way around their clay sun. And as soon as they're done with that, they're going to stop. Next, we're going to start constructing the rays of the sun. And we use our slab roller in our classroom to roll us out a nice slab. You could also do that in a similar way to what we did with the sun and just flatten a patty in your hands if you don't have a slab roller. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut myself a nice long rectangle to work with. And I'm going to kind of cut this one in half. So that's about 1 inch, okay, about 1 inch wide there. I cut a strip, and now I'm going to cut the ends to make it look like a rectangle. And so now I'm going to cut a zigzag line. So I'm going to cut zig, zag. Oops. Zig, zag. And I'm cutting out little triangles as I'm doing that. So I cut a triangle, then I cut a triangle. Cut a triangle, cut a triangle. And so these are going to be used for the rays of my sun. So this one's kind of a misshape, so I'm going to cut this one into a triangle, and then I can either use this one later if I need that little one, or I can recycle that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on attaching the sun rays, and to attach them you need to have scoring, touching scoring. So I haven't done any scoring on these little triangles yet. So I can either do that with my scratching tool, like this, score, 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 or I could do it just a little bit with my fork like this. So I make a little spot where the clay is going to touch each other. I'm kind of making my own Velcro. So I'm roughing up these little spots where they're going to touch the other roughed up spots. So this is all rough. I take a tiny dip of water, put it on, then I put it right on the sun where I want it to attach, and I press down. This is already rough. A little bit of water, press it down. So I need to continue doing that pattern. Water, press it down, water, press it down, all the way around the sun. Can put it on here, the water, if I want to, as long as I'm using a little bit of water. Again, the rough touches the rough. So now these rays, I haven't yet done any scoring on them. So I need to use my fork or my scoring tool to give those a little bit of a rough texture. So I'm making my own Velcro by attaching these like that. So I'm just going to keep on doing that until I've gone all the way around the sun. Now that my students have the sun rays placed all the way around their sun, they have the option of leaving them like that and just using their fingers to really press down and make sure that they're secure. Or they could use something like the end of their scoring tool or a popsicle stick to press in a little pattern. So I actually like to use the end of my scoring tool, and I like to go around on my sun rays and just kind of press down this little kind of polka dot pattern. Again, this is an optional pattern. Nobody has to do that. It just gives a little added security so that things don't fall off. I'm not pressing all the way through the clay. I'm just making a slight little imprint. So just kind of gently pressing around. Now that I've got all of those done, I'm going to carefully pick it up and I'm going to place the hole so that this can either hang like an ornament or maybe on the wall. So I just carefully wiggle my scoring stick through. And then on the back, a bunch of clay poked out. And if I leave that clay the way that it is, it will scratch somebody when it comes out of the kiln. So I always take my finger and really gently smooth that clay down. So you can't see all that rough clay on the back, so nobody's going to get hurt with that. So I smooth that down. Now they have the option, if they want to, they could draw a face. They could slip and score if they had some extra triangles. They could score something like this on. Maybe I want to make this into a nose, and I can kind of pinch the shape of it. And if I wanted to attach it, then I could score on the back, score on the sun, little bit of water, and add that. So now they can go ahead and add any features that they would have time to add. They could cut out eyes, they could cut out a nose. Another thing I really like to do is I like to stick my finger underneath, and I like to kind of poke little cheeks into the sun. So I'm kind of poking right back here, if you can see those little divots. I'm poking little cheeks into the sun, and as I was poking those little cheeks, my 3 kind of went away. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I make another 3 over here for 3J. So I poked those out. So now I've got a sun, it's got a nose attached, it's got cheeks poofing out. Maybe I'll just use my scoring tool to make a small little hole that might look like a mouth down there. And then I can come up with some sort of eyes. So I'm just going to draw eyes just like that and just leave it. So you can go ahead and be creative on how you want to make your sun face. This is a 3rd grade lesson on how to make a clay sun.